Oh, this is On the Fringe of Society, brought to you by Elmer's Glue, who wants you to know that sooner or later we live, we die, but we all become glue.
It was doomed to glue?
We're
Right?
doomed to
No,
glue.
what was it? It was good. God damn it, we
I
suck.
fucked it up, man.
That's all right,
So,
dude.
uh,
It's all right.
so there's our one sponsor gone.
Oh,
Um, we're
fuck.
I'm your one of your hosts. I'm a singular host. I'm Brian Wilson, and I'm here joined by
The ever lovable Oliver Onion.
AC
And
Darkley.
AC Darkly.
AC Darkly, and we are gonna take maybe an hour-long journey down paranormal avenues, and we would be so happy
Different
to do
side
this.
streets.
Yeah, nothing, no main streets, a couple alleys.
XL
To
on
be
Main Street.
honest, I hope to get into at least one storm cellar.
So that puts us out in like the Midwest.
I got a story coming out of Kansas.
Okay.
Um, by Kansas I mean New York City, and by New York City I mean the occult. Um, I've heard from multiple sources, and one of them being a man named Michael C. Luckman, excuse me. He believes that John Lennon was, John Lennon, the Beatle, made a lot of music, some of it good, some of it kind of whack.
I'm
Um,
not. I'm not familiar.
he was in a band called the Beatles. They were kind of like the Beach Boys, but worse.
Brian Wilson.
Yeah, that Beach Boys, no relation.
Okay.
Um,
I'm glad we finally cleared that up after 10 episodes.
yeah, we're not the same guy. He's been calling me.
You're in trouble though. He's
Yeah,
he's
he's
the
not
same
pleased.
guy that Marilyn, not yeah, Marilyn. Charles Manson sent a letter and a bullet that says, "When I get out, I'm gonna kill you with this." And he sent a letter back and said, "Not if I kill you first."
And he's still alive. So there you go.
Someone has to die. In the end, there could be only one.
But Michael C. Luckman, who's an extraterrestrial expert, believes that more than being a musician, John Lennon was actually at the center of a battle between different spiritual forces, different kinds of aliens, with different sort of ethics, morals, existing different parts of the moral spectrum. So John Lennon was a good guy, and he was actually killed when Mark Chapman was inhabited by a dark alien. Let's call them that. So John Lennon was acting as an agent, for lack of a better term, for the good aliens, the light aliens, whatever you'd like to call them. It's not entirely sure who they're working for, what their purposes are, except to spread peace. Peace throughout the universe, peace and harmony, and sort of a collective advancement. And this is the sort of thing you hear with things like the Galactic Federation of Light, where there's this collective good force that wants to spread knowledge and peace and freedom and wisdom throughout the universe. And then there are forces of chaos on the other side, that seek to disrupt that and sort of take over, and hoard power for themselves. And so John Lennon had become so successful, enormously successful beyond most people's wildest dreams for a man who's famous for laying in bed.
Yeah.
He to spread these messages of peace and really gain traction with that, in a musical way and also in a spiritual way, that these dark aliens inhabited and coerced Mark Chapman into killing John Lennon. And Mark Chapman claimed that the devil made him do it, as if he were possessed, but it seems a little bit more likely that it was dark aliens.
Instant karma's gonna get you.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that theory before, surprisingly as strange as it was. And like the where it came up was, I mean, obviously not the most credible source, not someone that I'm really like down with, but Yoko Ono actually went as far as to say that all four of the Beatles were not so much musicians, but channeling like a galactic energy, and they were just like the medium through which like the human race could understand this galactic message.
Yeah, which is why they wrote songs like "Why Don't We Do It in the Road."
Strawberry fields forever.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I've heard that too, and I mean, people say that in like a figurative sense, like it's like they were channeling this galactic love. But yeah, there are people like Yoko Ono who do mean it in a more literal sense.
They were the first band to figure out that you could play 4 chords. Like,
Hmm.
congratulations, you did it.
There's have you ever read The Invisibles?
Yes,
So
yes, I did.
John Lennon is treated in that. It's not like a main theme in it, but he's treated in that like a god or an avatar of a god as having some sort of supernatural, not supernatural, but higher spiritual,
Yeah, like
transcendental presence.
yeah, he's like closer to the source.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so that's why they took him out. Now it's hard to say whether this is true or not, but I suppose that a world of peace led by the philosophies of John Lennon uh, would really stick in a dark alien's craw.
I would imagine that they do have craws.
If anything has a craw, it's a dark alien. I'm not really
Yeah,
sure what a craw is, but it sounds gross.
it just makes me think of like a crayfish. Like they got the like a lobster, those weird like the
The
mandible
mouth
type
things
deal.
like
Yeah,
the Zoidberg shit. Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So
So that's our just first story to get everybody kind of in the mood for the supernatural, the
all right,
paranormal, the uncommon, and the fringe.
I got a pretty good cryptid one. Since summer is, I was gonna say right around the corner, but it is here. It has
What if
arrived.
do you think? And I don't mean to interrupt so much, but I was thinking about
Interrupt me. I interrupt like every 5 seconds.
eating cryptids. Like, what if you only hunted cryptids and you ate like cryptid steak? How much would cryptid steak go for in a paranormal restaurant?
I don't. I all I'm. The only thing I could think of though is like the ancient, like Native American idea where like if you eat the heart of a warrior, you possess, you get their strength, their power. So like if
Mhm.
you ate like the heart of Bigfoot, I think there's a good video game in this.
Eating the heart of Bigfoot.
That's my autobiography.
But what were you saying?
No, I mean that was a pretty good like if you had a restaurant, even if you made a restaurant and it was just like different themed and you kind of like try to make it taste like what you would think, like a Bigfoot burger, like a
Well, I feel
Loch
like
Ness monster,
a Bigfoot burger would
fin
be like
soup,
a nice like Angus beef burger, but then you have somebody sweat on it.
and then, like a little bit of hair's got like from the cook's head onto the.
Yeah, like the worst, the grossest looking cook, the fattest, dirtiest motherfucker.
I'm picturing that. Yeah, yeah, I'm about that.
I mean, I wouldn't eat it, but I would make somebody else eat it.
Yeah, hell yeah. Where's Aaron at?
Yeah, he's unfortunately working again.
Hardest working man in the business.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him the business.
Let me tell you, business is booming.
So what were you gonna say before we got into eating things?
Well, basically, this one goes along with the summer. Like everyone goes to the beach. Everyone's seen Jaws. If not, well, shame on you. Well, this they had been following for about 2 years this 9 foot long great white shark, which is,
Sure.
I mean, 9 feet. That's really long. That's to put in perspective. That's Bigfoot, but in the water swimming.
Okay.
Which I mean, that's really big. But um, recently, they found its fin washed up on the shore with the tracker attached to it, and from the different readings and the information, they were able to determine that it was rapidly there. The heat signature rapidly rose, which pretty much what they were able to surmise was that the shark was being digested by something larger.
Hmm.
So they were looking into maybe some kind of different super predator or something like that. But what they thought they could determine was that the most likely thing, because it's been shown that great white sharks have cannibalized other smaller great white sharks. So if it were to go along with that, which would be the most plausible thing here, is that it would have been a great white shark that was over 30 feet long.
Dang.
Which is about 5 feet longer than the shark in the original Jaws.
So this is Super Jaws.
Super Jaws, yes. Super Jaws 8. That just brings me to my next point. Never go to Australia. Everything there can kill you. Spiders, snakes. Have you ever seen what koalas? They have razor sharp claws. Have you ever seen what a kangaroo actually looks like? They put up these pictures of these like small hopping around everything. What a kangaroo actually looks like, the male kangaroo is jacked. It is pure muscle, and it will kick you to death. And that's my PSA. Never go to Australia.
I mean, a giant kangaroo would be pretty scary. They'd be pretty deadly, man.
I wonder why there isn't any cryptids like that. We have to research into that.
Australian cryptids?
Yeah,
we're not going to. That'd be a good band.
Australian cryptids. We'd have to have like a. Can we get that guy from Crocodile Dundee to join the band though? It's gonna be him.
James Franco, yeah.
James Franco, Sting, and Gnarls Barkley.
There's nothing supernatural about Gnarls Barkley.
I thought you were gonna say Sting. I was like, that dude's like an alien. I know it.
I was gonna say Sting, and then I remembered the time that I watched Dune, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Man. Special effects are shit.
It's like one of like the biggest disappointments all time.
I mean, it was cool, I guess. I had just read the book, and I was so down.
Well, even just reading the book, like you can't, like that's not a filmable movie, especially in the 80s.
Yeah, and if they made it now, it would suck. I'm sure there was like a perfect time in history where you could have made Dune and it could have been good. It was probably like 1996.
Pre-Independence Day.
If you could get Pixar to make Dune before they started making kids' movies, if you just had them on the special effects. It's Pixar, and it's directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
I don't know. Francis Ford Coppola in the 90s was a little bit sketchy.
It could have been his comeback, man.
That's true. You know his son is Nicolas Cage.
That's actually his father.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's a time-traveling vampire.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Hey, that's my bad. But, what was I going to say? I am drawing a blank. It was something good. It was something relevant. Oh, yeah, did you see that the original person that was going to direct Dune was Salvador Dali?
Dali wasn't going to direct it. He was involved, though.
Well, he was like the artistic, like he was gonna. I thought he was supposed to direct it.
No, he wasn't. He was like artistic director or something, and he like asked for like an absurd amount of money, and they're like, okay, but they never actually made it. But like all the concepts that they developed, and all like the art, and all the stylistic stuff and technological stuff that they did for that movie that never even got made, became very influential.
Well, there you go. The more you know.
So the best Dune movie is the one that never gets made, I guess, is the lesson.
I could live with that.
Can you live with a humanoid tree creature?
It depends.
Let me tell you this. So for this segment, I was thinking that a lot of what we do is news analysis. We find a piece of paranormal news and we talk about it. But equally compelling, if not more compelling, are actual first-person accounts of people encountering the paranormal and trying to rationalize it, make sense of it. Because, news has maybe, even paranormal news, has a higher threshold of evidence or needs certain things to happen that make it news. But these first-hand accounts are people just facing these things that we talk about and discussing them. So I thought we could just go through a few first-person accounts and discuss them, say, are these real? Do we buy them? Is there a more rational explanation? And what, just, pick them apart.
All right. Sounds like
So
a plan.
this is from a user on unexplainedmysteries.com named Nancy Says No.
Ooh, Nancy
Yeah,
says no.
that's also another band that we should start.
That actually is a
Um,
really good one.
Nancy Says No. Um,
For real, we're doing it. It's happening.
okay, so here's the truncated version because it's kind of on the lengthy side. She claims she has no
Oh,
reason
it's
to
funny
lie.
because it's about a humanoid tree person.
Well, it's a humanoid tree creature, so get used to it.
Yeah, I know.
She,
I'm just saying it's funny because you said truncated. Like I know what that
uh,
means, but like
okay, I get what you're saying now. And she also talks about being branded a nut, which I always thought, because nuts come from trees.
that's
Um,
highbrow. That's highbrow right there.
so Nancy says no, says I have no reason to lie. I used to work nights in a nightclub in Perth, which is in Western Australia, and she would walk home at the end of the night, which was late night, early morning. She'd be walking through the park, Hyde Park. So this is one. I can't believe that you can walk through a park in the middle of the night in Australia and not get stabbed to death. So I guess it's not.
They have really big knives there.
They have huge knives. They have the only knives.
All of them.
And so she'd be walking along these paths, and she would notice that she would look at this tree. It's a big tree, and she looks at the roots, and she thinks, "Oh, this root is shaped like a person. Like it has a head and a body and arms, has sort of details that make it look like a person." And it's she goes to take a look, and she sees that the figure in the root of this tree, so it's not the tree itself, but it's like the root with all these features, turns to look at her. The features shift as if it's actually looking at her. Um, and let me make sure that we understand it's not just like a picture in a root. It's like a root the size of a person. It's a very large tree.
That's a very
Um,
large tree.
and she looks so human. He's moving as if he's human. She starts to act as if he's all right. Um, but he opens his eyes, and she said they're big and almond shaped, and they kind of look like a cat's eyes. And they're dark, completely like a gray alien. Um, and she says that these are very kind eyes. And so, in hindsight, she wished she had stayed because she feels like um, this was a kind
I don't know why
creature.
it's so funny. It makes me think of that like '90s song, like "You Stay, I hear what I want to." I don't know why. There's something wrong with me.
Anyway, she sees these and she goes back the next day because she runs when she sees that this is like moving like a
That's a.
creature.
I mean, I was gonna say that's a fair reaction.
And she goes back in the morning and it's not there anymore.
The whole tree's gone,
Um,
or just the root.
the root that apparently was a person. So
Okay,
what's
well,
going on there?
all right. The way I would weigh in on this, what time? It was real late. It was after a long shift she had.
At a
Correct.
club too, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'm not saying that she was doing anything like drugs or anything, but saying like I know that working long shifts and coming out late at night, it's. I mean, you get tired after a long week, and maybe her being tired, the long day. She was a little bit out of it, maybe a lot of it out of it. When you start getting tired, you start seeing stuff. You think you see stuff, and then couple that with a scientific type deal called pareidolia, which are you familiar with?
No, can you go into more detail?
All right, it's basically um, your brain has like the inherent ability. It believes that it sees faces in different things, like in the clouds or um,
Like
if
in your
just looking,
carpet.
yeah, just looking out into nature, then it just stuff that's not really actually a face appears as a face to you. So maybe combined with being tired and the fact that the brain wants to mentally pull faces out of nature as it is, could add in. I mean, I know she saw it move and everything, but things happen fast. Maybe your memory's not as great. And then add that maybe she had a few drinks when she left the club or
Maybe not even a few
other.
drinks, but you're
Yeah.
confronted at a club, like a nightclub, with all sorts of stimulation, like the loud music, the lights, all the people,
And
that
then
just.
to go out into a quiet park, and that's like pretty much like a system shock right there.
Mhm. So not to say that this wasn't what it was, because obviously a grown, intelligent woman can tell
Yeah,
the
I don't
difference
I don't want
between.
to I don't want to tell anyone ever like put them down, say like, hey, you're lying. But I mean, that's just maybe a different opinion, different way to look at it.
It would be easy to believe that something else happened, that she was disoriented in some way, that it's not
Yeah.
a lock.
So are we going to go on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 or
I'd say 1 to 99.
99? All right. What do you want to give this on the plausibility scale?
What are you gonna give it? We'll both give it a square.
All right. I'm going to go with, I'll say, based upon um, her occupation, the time of night, the fact that she was in the club, leaving, and then just the idea that we naturally see faces and different things. I'm going to say like a 36.
All right, I'm gonna give her a 24,
24.
only because
Jack Bauer.
she didn't stay, and she didn't.
But do you blame her though? I'm not. I mean, how mad would your parents be if you got killed by a tree monster?
Well,
Don't answer that because I already know that your dad would be like, he'd be upset, but at the same time, he'd be like, there's a sci-fi movie in this.
he'd be like, that fucking dummy.
You Plato throwing Jag off.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you, Nancy Says No, for weighing in and letting us talk shit on your life.
We appreciate it though.
All right. This, we're gonna go from, tree monsters aren't exactly a huge fixture in the paranormal world, but
In vogue.
they're not in vogue. But this one is shadow people. Now, shadow
Oh,
people.
they're all the rage right now.
Yeah, for those people who aren't familiar with them, they're the things. Often they're the things that you see out of the corner of your eye, especially when it's dark. That seem to be retreating shadows that you can never look at directly, but you sense a presence and you see something kind of retreating from your vision. And so these are big right now. I'm sure, at least in part because of Mr. Slenderman.
Yeah.
He shares some qualities, I guess, with shadow people, but I assure you they are a different breed entirely. And so there are many different resources on the internet and beyond for people who say that they've seen these things, that they've encountered these things, they've had some sort of effect on their life. What I like about I'm about to read now is that this is from an official, a police officer. So a lot of paranormal stories that you read come from just an innocent bystander, someone who was just there. And a lot of people who operate in any sort of official capacity, you don't really see them coming forward with
Yeah,
paranormal stories a lot.
their reputation they have more to lose. Their reputation is basically at stake.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the police officer and you're saying like, oh, I'm seeing this, seeing that, next thing you know, you're pulling or you're pulling like crossing guard duty.
Yeah, but you don't want to deal with a crazy crossing guard. It's like the sequel of Pulp Art Mall Cop. Um,
That guy's like so fat.
so this guy, this is from 2011 actually, but I thought it was worth talking about. He withheld his name, but I can at least tell you what he said. So he had just moved in with his fiance, and they're laying in bed, and he like reaches over to touch her, and he realizes that she's totally ice cold, and she doesn't seem to be breathing, which obviously alarms him. Um, and he opens his eyes to wake up, and he sees her. She's levitating from the waist up. So her torso, her head, her arms, are all sort of lifted off of the bed. And right above her is this orb. It's about the size of an exercise ball. And it's not touching her necessarily, but it's glowing, and it seems to be moving on with her, floating her, as if it's pulling her. And he looks at the orb, he looks up, and in the doorway is what looks to be a shadow of a man. And all you see the silhouette of a man who seems to be wearing like a hat, like a fedora, and he
Toby
sees red
Keith.
eyes. What's that?
Toby Keith.
He sees Toby Keith in the doorway. Now he seems more like a film noir sort of figure almost, but the silhouette, fedora, but with red eyes, like bright red.
The way I picture
eyes.
is like the old time like detective movies where like they close the office door and then you got the silhouette of the man.
Mm-hmm. But with red eyes.
Yeah.
And he grabs his wife's arm and he looks at this guy who just seems to be standing there watching. And he starts shaking his wife and to like wake her up, snap her out of it. But she seems to be almost responseless, dead. He's a police officer. He says he's dealt with dead bodies before. And her arm was stiff and like rigor mortis was setting in. And so the Shadowman's there and he starts to rebuke is the term in Jesus' name. So that's a religious fella. He's just basically saying like, you shouldn't be here. You don't belong here. You cannot do this, that sort of thing. He did it with a religious tint, but it's something that you can do, that you're told to do if you feel as if you or somebody near you is being possessed. That there is effective to verbally, and if you can't speak mentally, shout pretty much that you can't do this, you may not do this, you are not allowed to do this.
A lot of real big with different religious things, like any prayers or think about Jesus.
and rebuke. And so at this point, he starts doing this, and he continues to do this, and he sees the shadow man begin to vibrate, and a super high frequency fills his ears, sort of like a television turning on. You know, when you get that really, really high electronic buzz in your ears.
Yeah.
And so this shadow sort of loses form and begins bouncing off the walls and exits through the window, but the orb stays, and the orb turns to him and it has a face in it.
He's committed to the relationship.
Yes, the orb wants to be there, and the orb sort of has this face on it. It's like a man's face, but the features seem to be floating on their own on top of the orb, and it seems angry. But he continues to rebuke it, and it rolls into him, into him, as if it's has no real form. You know how that you see ghosts pass through people in movies, sort of like that. And as the orb rolls into him, he says it feels like somebody dropped a ton of bricks on top of him. He's been tased before, and he compares it to that. He's a cop.
He knows.
But he could still move and talk, but there's this weight, and there's this, like, he's unable to control his muscles in some ways. But after this, it leaves the room. It goes out the door, the orb. And his wife drops back to the bed, and she warms up, and he wakes her up, and she doesn't remember this. And she goes back to sleep, actually. And he stays awake for some time, obviously, after that, and stays by his wife's side. She doesn't believe him. His chest, he's kind of in pain, but he seems okay. And in the morning, he can wake her up and really describes what happened. She says that several years ago, when she was in the military, the same thing had happened to her roommate, with a similar description of the shadow guy.
Wow.
And so, he everybody says he's dreaming except for his wife, who trusts him. And he looks around online, and he finds the same sort of demon online in the trench coat. And he says he kind of, from other people's descriptions, looks like one of the sand people from Star Wars, but in a fedora.
So pretty much like Rorschach from...
Yeah, Rorschach, yeah.
Yeah.
And so this happens, and there's no report, there's no update to this saying that it's ever happened again. But
wow, I really like that one, because that's such a unique encounter. Like, you really don't hear anything. Like, I've heard similar describing the man with the fedora, and like they almost call it like a man in black. It's along the similar lines as like the Slender Man, the Grinning Face Man, just this malevolent like entity that visits people at night, and no one really knows what they're there for. But I just really like this one. It was like such a unique. You really don't hear anything like this. And what really brought it together for me is when she said like the same thing happened to her roommate when she was in the military. Like that's the makings of a good
I mean,
scary story.
so you have to wonder what the wife's been up to. If she's encountered this before, why is she in such high demand?
Yeah, is it following her? Is it what does it want from her?
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that makes this truly terrifying is that you don't know. There's things that we can't comprehend.
Well, what I want to know more about is the orb, because you hear a lot about shadow people, but what's this weird like
Yeah,
humanoid orb thing?
with the face, that's some that I don't know, but he was in it for the long haul.
I mean, if I had to, it makes me think almost of like a Hellraiser thing. Like it
Like
could
the
be,
Cenobites, or
it could be a Cenobite.
that would be terrifying.
I would not live in a world that Cenobites hang out in.
In my bedroom when I'm sleeping.
Like, yeah, with my wife.
You wake up, it's like, hey, what's up, dog?
Yeah, I'll wear Cenobites now. We converted.
If anyone ever asks you what your religion is, you have to go with that.
Cenobite.
I'm sure the government would have to recognize that on your tax reforms. So what do you think some possible explanation? Like, I know a lot. Like when these nighttime encounters, people see it coupled as like the night terrors, where your body physically can't move. Like you perceive that you're awake, but you're really not. Coupled with like maybe like an actual nightmare. So
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty decent explanation.
but
And
the fact that he saw the same thing that her roommate saw when she was in the military, that's a lot right there.
that's what pushes your run of the mill dream into the paranormal is the corroboration.
This is the stuff, man. This is what takes it to the fringe.
And that's why we're on the fringe.
It's not so much on the fringe as it's knocking on society. It's the hey, it's at your back door, hanging out with your wife while you sleep.
Yeah, you and your wife have to sleep in shifts for your entire life.
That's pretty much what it's like to have a baby.
Huh. So have children, avoid Cenobites.
It's one or the other. All right, so on a scale to 1 to 99, I'm gonna go with a 72.
You're gonna go. I was gonna go 51.
51, okay.
Just
See,
over.
yeah, I really like this one. This was because you got to look at it like with the two different um, like instances where unbeknownst to the other one, like this had happened before, and not so much just to her, but like to one of her roommates, and the fact couple that with like he's two reputable sources, military member and a police officer, and they have a lot to lose by. That being said, if this is a true account, true stories, but I just as far as it goes with the information that we have, I'd go with the 72.
All right, I'll take it. Now I'll do one more. I think of these first person accounts. Uh,
Then we'll
and
get
this
to
is
the
just we're gonna
Blobsquatch.
some abduction stuff. So we actually are surprised at how seldom we talk about aliens and extraterrestrials and such
Well,
things.
it's when people really think about the paranormal, the two things you think about are ghosts and aliens. And in 2014, at this point, aliens have been like the most popular paranormal type um, like entity for such a long time. It's like they're the zombies of the paranormal. Like they're played out. So
Yeah, but I mean, they are worth talking about.
they're the meat. They're the meat and potatoes.
So this is a longer one, and I'm just gonna skim through and kind of pick out the highlights.
Story of my life.
Mm-hmm. So this is a woman in Central Texas, I believe. Uh, yeah, Stephenville, Texas. And so she's at home during the daytime. She'd just been laid off from a full-time job. She's working all these odd jobs. She's kind of stressed out. She's in a vulnerable state, let's say. And so her husband's at his job, and she goes in the kitchen and she goes and makes herself a sandwich, and she gets the feeling of this presence that's watching her from the ceiling. And she looks up, and there's nothing there, and she's like, "Oh, I'm being ridiculous. I'm just stressed." Um, and so she's doing some dishes here. It's 1:15 in the afternoon, and she goes and sits on the couch, and all of a sudden she feels like there's a huge magnet that pulls her not up, but to the other end of the couch, and then lays her down um, in her torso. So she's kind of moving her arms and legs about a little bit as well as she can, but she can't pick herself up. She can't move. Everything goes black, and she hears something that kind of sounds like a power drill. And right before she feels like she's about to black out, she sees this like strange humanoid figure that she doesn't know what it is.
That's always a terrible sign.
And so she can't see. She feels like she's almost losing consciousness, but she's fighting as much as she can, and she feels that he has some sort of weapon. And she can feel it kind of poking her and going over her mouth, and she can't tell if it's like a gun, a needle, or even like an inhalant of some sort. And she blacks out and loses her vision, and she hears two male voices. One says it's not her time. The other says that he just wanted to talk to me, and asks her directly, "What's wrong?" And she feels this sudden sort of wave of honesty comes over her. She says she's worried about her finances. She's worried about her kids coming home from school, um, and seeing that she's having this weird abduction sort of blackout scenario with these two strange men. Um, and then the guy says, "Well, you'll be back when the kids get home from school." And he starts to go over with her why they're abducting her and what their reasons are. Though she says that she can't remember. She knows that he did it, but she can't remember what they wanted from her. But he starts to talk about her future, actually. He prepares her. He tells her that she's going to have divorce. It's going to be a rough emotional time, but the children will be all right, and that she will be able to make it through the divorce. And she finds this man to be very soft and patient, actually, very comforting, even though she's been sort of forcefully abducted or taken out of her normal consciousness. And he's
So
actually,
as far as abductions go, it was pretty pleasant.
so far, yeah. But
Uh-oh.
so she starts to come to, right, and this guy's actually working with her to get her breathing again, like CPR style, saying that he thought he'd killed her. And he takes her, and she kind of comes to in this round room, and she says she feels like it's just from the way the motion is, it feels like some sort of aircraft. There were people in there, like humans, in there, and they seem to be sort of worried and afraid. Adults, men and women, mostly. Um, some people are crying, but everybody is basically quiet except for one woman who's worried about her children. Everybody else seems to know that it won't do them any good to get upset. And they start to travel. Um, and they go to something that seems like an airport, like an airstrip, at a base. And the man has a microphone. A man comes up to her, and he asks her what she thinks is going on. She says she doesn't know. She just wants to get back to her family. Um, and they go underground to this building that kind of looks like an airport. If you've been like stuck in an airport, a lot of waiting rooms, such like that, big ceilings, tall ceilings. Um, and she can hear all these planes flying over. There are workers there. They're playing board games. They seem sort of nonchalant. They take care of her as she starts to shake. But she gets interviewed. She gets a personality test, some medical tests. They test her stress levels. Um, and they put her, they make her take a shower. And they put her in a black spaghetti strap dress and black heels. And they take
Going to the ball.
Apparently, they take her. They do her hair. They put on makeup.
Is this a new Disney movie?
It's. I mean, let me finish.
Okay, I'm
And
sorry.
they do her hair. They do her makeup, and they won't tell her why. And they take her down the spiral staircase, where there's at the bottom there's a big ballroom, lots of tables and chairs, but there's only one man sitting at one of the tables right next to the stairs, comes to meet her at the bottom of the stairs. They sit down, and he says he doesn't know what this is all about. And they start to talk, and he says, I assume that they're listening to us, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk. We shouldn't give them any trouble. We should do what they asked. And she doesn't remember his name, but she remembers that his last name was the name of a color. After they have this conversation,
Tom Green.
it's Tom Green. After this conversation, they take her back to the medical room. They put something into her right ear that makes like a really shrill noise, and they told her that they've chosen her and this partner man that she had just met, and he was to be her partner and what they were about to do. They assured her that she'd forget everything that had happened, so it didn't matter if she told them or not. They wouldn't believe her. And at this point, it's time to board the craft again that she came in, and she actually thanks them and tells them goodbye. They say, you'll know your partner when you meet him, because the same thing has happened to him, and you'll have that bond. He hugs her goodbye when they land, and whispers in her ear that he'll find her. She wakes back up. So this was 1:15 when she was picked up. She wakes back up on that couch at 3:15, and she's like comatose almost. She can't move. She can barely function. She's very dizzy. Her ear's infected when she goes to the doctor, and she keeps trying to tell people what happened, piecing together what she remembers, and they just think that she's sick. Her husband especially doesn't believe her, even though he listens to her. He just listens to this long story and then just kind of whatever. 7 years later, she divorces her husband, and she learns to live single. She brings her abduction up every now and then, and people just don't believe her. But she continues to do this is because she wants to find that partner man. She believes that other people have been abducted, A, and that they have some sort of bond, and B, that she'll find her male partner, and they'll be able to kind of make sense of this together. And so that's kind of where it ends. It's not necessarily a bad or painful experience. It's certainly a strange one.
It's like The Notebook, but with aliens.
Kind of. Pretty much, yeah. You have to find your soulmate, and your soulmate is an alien man.
That'd be such a great game show. I would watch that.
Find your alien soulmate.
It has to be hosted by Steve Harvey, though.
He's pretty busy right now.
Yeah, he's got a lot on his plate.
Yeah, we'll talk to him.
Actually, it should just be hosted by Steve Harvey's mustache.
What do you think of this whole abduction scenario?
I mean, it was like unique. There's a lot going on in the story. It's pretty fleshed out for a person that couldn't remember. That the part that trips me up a little bit, is that how she said that it doesn't matter if you tell anyone because you're not going to remember anyway. But how could they mess up so bad to the point where she actually does remember stuff?
Well, I mean, that's part of the thing that makes it feel more believable to me, that these are separate beings, sort of like humans, where things don't always work out the way they planned. That their technology may not be so perfect as they think, that it is possible to have these kinds of lapses.
Okay. You just think if you could master interstellar travel, that you wouldn't mess up something like wiping someone's memory, or maybe that's not an exact science.
Yeah, and they say like they're not that concerned.
That's true because
no one's ever going to believe her.
Yeah. All right. I'll go with on this one, just because the lady seemed like, I feel like she might have just had like a mental breakdown.
Well, she does seem like she's having a difficult time.
Yeah. I'm gonna say a 53.72. Also, our scale has decimals. I just made that a new thing.
That's fine. You know, it's not an exact science. Same thing with memory wiping.
Hey, we're only human.
So I'm gonna give her a 60.
60, okay.
just because I want this to be true, that we all have alien soulmates out there.
I mean, that is a pretty cool. That sounds like some kind of like romantic novel. I don't know if they made it into a movie, it would be something more entertaining than the majority of the garbage they put out there.
Yeah, it could be. I wish there were aliens in the Notebook. Not that I've ever watched it.
Don't lie.
I've never watched it. I'm not really sure what it's about. Do they time travel, or is that the one with Keanu Reeves?
That's the one with Keanu Reeves.
I would
I
rather.
think he's dead the whole time.
I would love to like go to a theater and watch that movie. I'm not even kidding.
I mean, the thing that's weird about that movie is like she puts like a letter in the mailbox, then he writes a letter back. Like they have like this portal through the mailbox or whatever. But like, I don't know, you couldn't think of something more creative than like a mailbox. Like people can write letters in the past and they're still there. They just don't go away. I don't. I mean, obviously, like they were communicating, but
I mean,
I don't.
I'm not like a huge Family Guy fan, um, but and I don't really watch it as much as I used to when I was like 11,
A young pup.
a young pup. But I always think when there are ideas like that, there's a scene in Family Guy where like Stephen King has to go in and pitch his new book, and he's obviously not thought about it at all. And so he just like pulls random elements from around the room and like bullshits it, and they're like, "Fuck it, like I guess, like you go ahead." He like it's a lamp monster because there's a lamp on the desk. This is a dumb joke,
Was
but
that from The Simpsons?
was it from The Simpsons? I'd feel better for referencing if it
I
was.
think it was.
But the fact that the ideas can come from such stupid, stupid places without any sort of forethought um, before they're executed makes sense to
Well,
me.
I'll give her this. Like as far as this story goes, not the Keanu Reeves dumbass movie, but the this alien encounter. It is a well thought out, well put together story.
Yeah, but at the same time, it could just be like fan fiction for her life. Imagine if
Yeah.
you live in Central Texas, you're facing like extreme poverty. You've just been laid
An
off.
imminent divorce.
You
Yeah.
hate your husband. You hate your kids, and you want an escape. Wouldn't it be comforting to think that you could be just taken away by some sort of benevolent force?
Yeah, that your soulmate, your match is out there. There's something great. You're the chosen one. You're the Neo of the story. Keep referencing Keanu, but like
I mean,
you're yeah. I
that's
could
why people
definitely
go
agree
to
with
church. That's why I watch anime. That's why I played Final Fantasy VII.
that.
It's all basically that same impulse. So
It's because people are just genuinely scared of being insignificant, nothing in the grand scheme of
alone,
things.
yeah, and they desire for some sort of unstoppable, transcendent, but benevolent force to lift them out of that.
Ghostbusters.
This is depressing, man. We got to keep going.
I know it's probably not. All right. Well, I like our new segment. It ties well.
Mm-hmm.
And going into this with these first-person encounters ties into our overall theme for today, the Blobsquatch.
Dun, dun, dun.
Da, da, da. So basically, the concept of the Blobsquatch is, well, I'll set it up right now. There was a Bigfoot, like the Seattle Bigfoot Society, recently, back in, I like to say early February, had an expedition up into um, one of the national forests in Oregon, and they took some high tech equipment, some infrared cameras, and they actually caught a photo of a massive outline, a heat signature, and um, what the Bigfoot experts call this is a blob squatch. And what's the first thing you think of as a blob squatch? Like a big
I think
fat.
Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a fat Bigfoot.
Little cheese huskies teen.
He's a husky. he Well, what the blob squatch is it's pretty much it's just a blob. you can't say it's Bigfoot, you can't say it's not Bigfoot. Um, so basically, there's throughout the past couple decades, there's been all these quote unquote Blobsquatch, a lot of it pertaining to the infrared, where it picks up the heat signatures. You can't really see defined forms, but also in normal photographs where you see a big blob that looks like not even blob like, but like a big amorphous, like a dark thing, and it looks like it could possibly be like a bear, or like your mind draws the conclusion Bigfoot. And this leads me to tie in with that pareidolia, where your mind tries to paint things that aren't really there. Like, if have you ever been in the middle of the night and you hear a sound and you look out and you think you see something, you think you saw something? Well, that's your mind basically tricking you and making you think like there was something there. I put something there, projecting on it. So what might be a random rock structure, or even like a bear or something else moving, your mind thinks like, I was out here to find a Bigfoot, or I've known Bigfoot's been seen here, or the whole concept of Bigfoot, like that's a Bigfoot. So you draw that conclusion. Your mind doesn't allow you to see anything else. So that's where the idea of the blob squatch comes in. And the part that really cracks me up about these quote unquote blob squatches is that by definition is a blob squatch is something that could be or could not be a Bigfoot. So wouldn't that pretty much encompass everything? We are all blob squatches.
I am become Blobsquatch.
I want a shirt that says that. We're going to start selling this.
And maybe that's how we'll make money on this fucking show, is sell like dope shirts about stupid shit.
We're good at, for our band, Nancy Says No. If you just Google it, there's like a couple pictures, like just, and if you put Blobsquatch into Google, like that's the one that just made me bring it up, was the most recent one, was the Seattle researchers. They were up there and they caught the infrared, which the infrared's pretty cool. Oh, I thought that was a Blobsquatch. I got scared.
What was?
That yawn. Was that your Blobsquatch call? I can't even talk.
No idea what you're talking about.
That wasn't you?
Cyber Squatch.
It's coming from in the house.
What were you saying, though?
Blobsquatch. No, so what do you think about the whole Blobsquatch phenomenon?
I mean, I think it brings up an interesting question, that those who look for things, paranormal,
they're more predisposed to find them.
But it also takes that attitude to find things that haven't been found. And so it's sort of this interesting bind, I guess, that you find yourself in when you're searching for these things. On one hand, you have to know that you're predisposed to see things that perhaps aren't there. On the other hand, if you don't have that willingness to see things that might not be there, then you'll never see anything.
Yeah, you have a better chance of finding it than the average person, but at the same time, you're going to come under more criticism because you were your goal was to find one, and then you did.
So, I mean, maybe the best thing that any self-respecting paranormal researcher like you or myself could do is really just throw themselves headfirst into it and let everybody else sort it out.
Oh, I'm pretty much down with criticism. I'll take the heat.
Like, somebody else can make sense and really make sure you saw what you saw, but you have at least the
well, I kind of like to think that we're more of the intermediates, where obviously we're into the paranormal. We have the podcast. We look into this. It's something that genuinely interests us, but at the same time, we look at it from not a skeptical point of view, but a more open mind. Like, we offer alternative explanations, but at the same time, we don't discount these eyewitness accounts or what actually happens. We just basically go by what facts we have.
We're the only people that can know the truth.
We're the ones that sift through the shit.
And that's why so many people listen to us.
Exactly. Yeah, it's I kind of like the concept of the blob squatch though. Just instead of people saying like, "Hey, we saw Bigfoot," like we saw a quote unquote blob squatch, which is either is or it's like it's the idea of like a UFO too, where it's not you didn't say I saw a flying saucer, I saw an unidentified flying object,
Mm.
which I mean that's true. You don't know what it is, but you're not calling it one thing or the other.
Though I do feel like we need a new word for UFOs because UFOs is just so
Super
tightly
played out.
tied. Yeah, it's played out. It's too tied to flying saucers.
Yeah.
When I say UFO, I want to mean it. I was like, I don't know what the fuck that was, man, but
No, I mean I'm
it's
100% with that. Like that's it's used too liberally. Um, but yeah, like I don't know if blob squatch is the right word though for
no, I
stuff
don't
that
think
could or
that's.
could not be a Bigfoot, but there definitely has to be some type of the concepts. It's in the right place.
We'll think on it.
We'll coin a term. That'll be our claim to fame.
That's all I ever wanted to do, man. Was quarter term.
Just live off that forever.
That's my term, man. Buy a T-shirt. Buy my tote.
Blob squatch. Blah blah blah.
Blah 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 loves Blobsquatch.
Do you think they'll make another season of Arrested Development?
I don't.
The newest one wasn't bad, but it just didn't have.
I think it was from. I actually didn't watch the whole thing, so I'm about to talk out of my ass. But it seemed like it was conceived in a totally different way. It was supposed to be a movie. First off,
I could definitely. I watched the whole thing, and I could definitely see it. It would probably have been better as a movie.
yes, you could compress it, and all those threads that you were supposed to pick up and tie together yourself would be easier to tie together. It would seem
Yeah.
more natural, less forced.
Speaking of threads tied together, this is going off on a little nerd tangent, but have you ever heard that Topher Grace took the three original prequel films in Star Wars and cut them down into one prequel, and it was actually supposed to be a good movie?
Topher Grace did that.
Yeah.
Our Topher Grace.
Yes.
I've never heard that. Did he release it, or does he just like
No, he legally can't.
friends?
But like his boys have come over and they're like watched and they're like, "This is good."
Hmm.
Like him and that cast, the cast of that '70s show, pretty much just hung out and watched it.
I like that culture because I have a friend that does that with The Simpsons and like different TV shows, where he'll take a whole season and cut it into a movie. Um, and I like that it can only travel really geographically because if you put up the internet, you go to jail.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just do
Jail's
that
so scary.
ourselves.
What will we do?
Or we could do Star Wars. But we could do anything, man.
We have the power.
And we have the software anyway.
We have the technology. We can rebuild him. All right, well, I think that was a quality discussion. For once, we were semi-focused,
Mm-hmm.
which was I like the new format's pretty nice. Our next show most likely will go back to something similar to an old format, but we'll keep the new segment where we weigh in on eyewitness accounts. I really like that. It was a good transition into the main thing. It was a little bit short, but I just thought I'd bring up the concept of Blobsquatch because it's picking up a little steam recently, and I don't know. I thought it was a little interesting factoid.
Well, I think we did good. And so we'll kind of work at the kinks for next week. Hopefully, we'll have our
Hey, we're getting
co-host
better,
back.
stronger, and faster.
I'm getting slower.
That's
That's
okay.
that's
Hey, it's okay, buddy. You'll be all right. All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, first-person accounts you'd like us to weigh in on, we have an email address. It is onthefringesociety@gmail.com. Just shoot us a text or an email because that's stuff people do.
I would prefer an email because if you have my phone number, then uh, don't have it.
Don't lose it.
Don't have it. Don't lose it.
All right. I'm AC Darkly,
I am Brian Wilson.
and you've joined us on the Fringe of Society. Until
Thank you.
next time.
Thank you,
Uh,
Blue's Clue.
until next time.
Until next time, we're all just doomed to glue.
We're doomed to glue.
Waits.
Nancy says no.
Amen.